Step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. After counsel with a sponsor or an EDA or other 12-step group member who has worked the 12 steps, we went to the people we had injured and admitted our fault and regret. Our statements were simple, sincere, and without blame. We set right the wrongs as best as we could and expected nothing in return. Accountability set us free. We must be willing to go to any length to set right the wrongs we ourselves committed in thought, word, and deed. We should review our plan with someone who has perspective. We should also review our plans for restitution to those who might be unduly affected, especially where financial amends are indicated. We must not take any kind of arrogant attitude when we approach people we have hurt. We can have no expectations of the other people involved. We can have no expectations about how we ourselves will respond to the act of making amends. And the thing about this is there are living amends and obviously amends to those who we can't make amends to that have passed. So the goal is to spend a few minutes reviewing our amends list with someone and be open to feedback. It may be important to point out that the 9th step promises usually start to come to pass after we are halfway through our 9th step amends. Due to the toll of guilt and shame, some people may not experience significant relief until they have completed all possible amends. The good news is that the hard work of establishing our new foundation is mostly complete. Now we must build upon it, for if we don't, we'll be wasting both an opportunity and the effort we have put in so far. The benefits and all of the promises come from continuous reliance on the foundation we have put in place. And so I have my list here, and I have the people on the left-hand side, and then the people that I listed, actually I can make living amends to. So I didn't actually have any amends that were non-living amends. And the request of the Big Book Step Workshop workbook is to make them in the next 2 weeks. And so like one is to my husband, and it's to spend more time with him, not on my cell phone, and more one-on-one time with him. And then the other is to my kids, and again, spend the same amount of time with them. And it doesn't necessarily come out of guilt. I mean, there is that I worked like all weekend, but it's legit. Like I enjoy that. Like it's something that I actually do want to do, and it's an amend because I didn't. Like I was so distracted so many times by work and by eating disorder behaviors, especially when they were first born, that I want to make that amend without, because of the age of my kids, without like saying it and, you know, like Jerry Maguire, show me the money. Like, you know, I think actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's interesting because that wasn't really what I was thinking of going into this, where the amends that you wrote down are a physical act. Like it is something, it's not just, I think a lot of times, at least for me, in these, you know, movies we'd see or something, if someone has to go make amends, it's just a verbal, like, I'm sorry, here's what I did wrong, and like it's an awkward conversation, whereas that feels almost, it definitely feels more attainable, and it feels a little bit more valuable too. Like, what can I do to actually move this relationship in a more positive direction? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
The other thing that stood out to me was right away there at the top where they said our statements were simple, sincere, and without blame. And taking that blame piece out of it is so hard sometimes because we don't, you know, working through these things, we don't want to take all the blame essentially, but we don't want to take all the responsibility on ourselves. So we're like, yeah, but what was their piece in it? And that's not the point of this.
It's just like free and clear.
Yes.
Right.
The point of this is what was my piece in it.
And peace is different than blame. You highlight something. So like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not even like you're blaming them or blaming you. It's just sort of like vanilla, like this happened. And I mean, it's like acknowledging it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And by simply acknowledging it, like making that amends. Yeah.
And I think sometimes those are the things that it's hard to get to the point where you even are acknowledging or understanding what your piece of it was. So there's so many pieces of that can be so freeing. And then the other piece that was mentioned, not expecting anything in return. Not doing this because you think it's going to result in X, Y, Z. And, they might not be okay with this. This is not meaning, if there's a strained relationship, this isn't a magic wand. No. But again, within yourself, you will get some peace from admitting these things, working through these things, making amends for them. I don't know, does that kind of make sense?
It does. And, so I made an amend to my college roommate. When I came out of my eating disorders, she wrote a letter to me when I wrote my first blog. And she said, I can't tell you how upset I was that you chose Ed over me. And I had no idea in my selfish state that I needed to make an amend. That was the thing. Here I didn't even know I needed to make an amend. And sometimes those amends are put upon us. Does that make sense? And because I had no idea.
And it's being aware enough that when that arises, that you're calling it what it is.
Yes.
That you're not placing blame on her for that, you're not getting upset with her for that you're seeing that for what it is and taking responsibility for that harm, essentially. But yeah.
Well, and when I first looked at this, I thought, when I was reading the big book, I thought, okay, well, there was no criminal activity. I didn't steal money. I didn't steal food. And I thought, what do I really have to make amends for? And for me, many of my amends are my selfishness and my unreasonable expectations that I had of myself and others, and it's been more of a connection thing. So I didn't necessarily sideswipe a car, thank God, or I didn't necessarily do anything like that, but yet I feel okay, so I don't have a period anymore and I had to go through in vitro fertilization. So there's an amend that I need to make. Not give my family back all the money that it gave me to have children, but there's an amend there to my husband. We had to go through child getting pregnant in a very unnatural way, and I did that. I didn't want to admit it. It wasn't because I was XYZ thyroid issues. I straight up just didn't have the hormones that I needed. And so the guilt and the shame that comes around with the in vitro fertilization, of having to take that piece of emotion away from, I think I want to make amends to a lot of people for emotions and my family and the emotional level. And again, when I did these first steps, I sort of was there was no deed. I didn't do anything, but then there were definitely thoughts and words that need to be amended. Yeah. And I love what you say, that the expectation of the amends not being it's not it's gonna just go away, but it's a step toward growth. And I think you make an excellent point by writing them down on paper. It's whoa, that's something that actually happened.
Yeah. And working through it a little bit further too, because if you were to say, I took, okay, for your example of in vitro fertilization, that's a very real, tangible thing. There would be more money in your bank account currently that maybe you could do other things with that is not there. Right. And even though, it was a decision you made together to use that money towards it, there's still, was it Ed, Right. And so I think it's looking at a situation and then looking at it again and figuring out where is the tangible piece of this.
Yes.
Beyond, maybe their feelings were hurt. That's valid as well, but a lot of times our decisions, our emotions, our behaviors have very real consequences, tangible consequences.
Yeah, concrete things. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and having my husband having to drive at 5:00 in the morning to give man parts to a doctor, there's real things. Sleep was sacrificed, you know, and
time at his job,
time away from family. It just, and then to do it again, time away from having a toddler to go do it again with the twins, and it just, a lot of, and you can't really get back time, but just making that amend. And at the conference we talked about, most 9-step amend conversations end up in the quote unquote nice bucket.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's unsafe, and that's why it's very important with the 9
Right.
steps to consult with someone, because you don't necessarily want to go to someone to make an amend where you would be in danger, or like again, if let's say you sideswiped a car and you found out the amount of money that would cost, and you went and just deleted your family's bank account of all that money, and they were counting on that for something else, like that's where you need to counsel with others before taking this step.
Yes.
To make sure that it's an appropriate action to make outside of paper.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is a real world action that is occurring in this
Yeah.
real world, and there are real world consequences. And I think that's the piece of it, this community piece that we keep coming back to, that, you know, there are people that are further along in this journey that have been there, that can give you some perspective that you may not currently have. Yeah, I think that's absolutely an important clarification, that don't just write this down and go run and do what you think is best. Check in with the people that you trust.
Yeah. Well, let me share out loud the 9th step promises that I mentioned in the beginning. And again, this may not come until the end when you're done all of your amends. For some people, it comes at like in phases and waves, kind of like nausea comes in waves, you know, but like other people, that happens right away. So if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we will know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I just mentioned serenity in a meeting tonight, was how I was feeling. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down we have fallen, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will see that our service to God, our higher power, or the greater good has done for us what seemed humanly impossible. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly and unfortunately, but honestly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. And so,
There was a lot in that.
there's a lot in that. And I think working through the guilt and the shame to get to that is really, really important. And to be honest, steps 1 through 9 help us deconstruct old ideas, outline new ones, and establish a foundation of trust. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, where steps 10 to 12 are the living, ongoing way of living EDA steps. And so step 9 is sort of that completion of rinsing out anything that's left and stuck, to allow that dish rag, unfortunately, to soak up more stuff to go forward with and work on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but also soak up some of other people's stuff too.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And help them clean up their messes.
Yeah.
Because we needed it. And still continue to need it.
Absolutely.
We need that. So
Absolutely. So step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Thanks for listening, guys. Stay tuned.
bye.
Bye.